designated ethics officials. So let me ask you, maybe in a different way. I know you promised to not interfere with the special counsel. Are there any circumstances that would cause you to terminate the investigation or any component of it, or significantly restrict its funding?
Under the regulations, Bob Mueller could only be terminated for good cause, and frankly, it's unimaginable to me that Bob would ever do anything that gave rise to good cause. But in theory, if something happened that was good cause, for me, it would actually take more than that. It'd have to be pretty grave, and the public interest would essentially have to compel it, because I believe right now the overarching public interest is to allow him to finish.
I would agree with that, but I also think over the past 18 months, you rather harshly prejudged the investigation in some of your writings.
Well, I don't see that at all, Senator. You know, when you strip away a lot of the rhetoric, the two things that have been thrown up as me sort of being antagonistic to the investigation are two things. One, a very mild comment I made that, gee, I wish the team had been more balanced. I wasn't criticizing Mueller. I believe that prosecutors, and I think you would agree, they can handle the case professionally, whatever their politics are. You know, a good prosecutor can leave their politics at the door and go in and do the job. And I think that's what Justice Department prosecutors do in general.
But you also are very critical of the Russian probe. And I mean, I can't think of anything that would, in your memo, for example, that would jump out more for this president because of his commitment to it. And I ask that because some have said on both sides, that it looked like a job application. And so that's what I want you to refer to.
Well, you know, that's ludicrous. If I wanted the job and was going after the job, there are many more direct ways of me bringing myself to the president's attention than writing an 18-page legal memorandum, or sending it to the Department of Justice and routing it to other.
But also publicly criticizing a Russian probe. I mean,
how have I criticized the Russian probe?
You don't have any criticism of the Russian probe?
Not at all. I think I believe the Russians interfered or attempted to interfere with the election, and I think we have to get to the bottom of it.
So you would be in favor of releasing the investigative report when it's completed?
As I've said, I'm in favor of as much transparency as there can be, consistent with the rules and the law.
Do you see a case where the president could claim executive privilege and say that parts of the report could not be released?
Well, I don't have a clue as to what would be in the report. The report could end up being, you know, not very big. I don't know what's going to be in the report. In theory, if there was executive privilege material to which an executive privilege claim could be made, it might, you know, someone might raise a claim of executive privilege.
That'd be pretty difficult following U.S. versus Nixon, when the Supreme Court unanimously rejected President Nixon's claims of executive privilege over the Watergate tapes. But I ask it because the president's attorney, Mr. Giuliani, said the president should be able to correct the Mueller report before any public release. So in other words, he could take this investigative report, put his own spin on it, and correct it before it's released. Do you commit that would not happen if you were Attorney General?
That will not happen.
Thank you. You had, when you're AG, I remember this well because I was here in the Senate at the time, you encouraged President George H.W. Bush to pardon all 6 individuals who were targeted in Iran-Contra. The independent prosecutor investigating the matter labeled that a cover-up. Now, you and I talked about this my office, and I appreciate you coming by. I found the conversation the two of us had be well worthwhile. Do you believe a president could lawfully issue a pardon in exchange for the recipient's promise to not incriminate him?
No, that would be a crime.
Thank you. In 1990, you argued that Congress' appropriation power is not an independent source of congressional power to control the allocation of government resources. There are only 3 committees in the Senate to have a vice chairman. Appropriations is one of them. Obviously, as vice chairman, I kind of looked at that. You claim that if a president finds no appropriated funds within a given category, he may use funds from another category, as long as both categories are in his constitutional purview. Now, this says Vice Chairman Appropriations Committee. Don't be surprised, I disagree. Congress's power of the purse, Article 1, Section 9, I believe constitutes one of the most fundamental and foundational checks and balances on the executive branch. So do you believe the president can ignore Congress appropriations allocations, conditions, and restrictions in law? Just ignore them and take the money and
Not as a general proposition, but that was a
general proposition.
I actually thought that was a good law review article. I gave it as a speech, and it was really a thought piece. And what I was really saying was, and I say right up front, that the more I thought about the appropriations power, the more confused I got. And I was just laying out a potential template, which is this. People frequently say, you know, the power to, you know, spend money on this division or this missile system is part of the power of the purse. And what I was actually saying was, you know, actually what the power being exercised there is the substantive power that Congress has to raise armies. And it's not, it doesn't come from the power of
specific appropriations on agriculture or on defense. I mean, for example, could a president just build a wall along our southern border because he wanted to and just take the money, whether appropriate or not? What about eminent domain?
What about eminent domain?
Well, if you're going to build a wall, you got to take a whole lot of land away from landowners in Texas and elsewhere.
Well, you know, you'd have to show me what statute is being invoked and also what appropriations is being used. I can't answer that in the abstract.
So you're saying the president, though, can have the power to go into money even if the Congress is appropriated for a different purpose?
I didn't say that. But some
You mean that?
I don't mean that. I'm saying that you know, there are monies that the president may have power to shift because of statutory authority.
But that would have been because Congress gave him that authority.
Right.
Not because he has it automatically.
I'm not taking that position. As I said, my law review, it was published as a law review article, and it was a thought piece exploring what limits there might be to the appropriations power and where Congress's power comes from in certain areas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just to follow up on that real quick, and I won't take this against the recording. To the Article 2 powers, the inherent authority of the Commander-in-Chief, give him the ability to take appropriated dollars for the Department of Defense and build a wall?
I can't, without looking at the statute, I really couldn't answer that.
I'm not talking about a statute. I'm talking about the inherent authority of the President as Commander-in-Chief.
That's the kind of question I would go to OLC to answer.
Okay. Get back with us on that, Senator Corn.